Thank you very much for being here. Today we are going to be talking with two excellent speakers. I am your moderator. I'm named Roman Clement. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Arca Science. I'm a teacher and lecturer at Sorbonne University too. And today we are welcoming Dr. Pouya Akbari, orthopedic surgeon at Barking, Havering and Redbridge University, hospitals and NHS trusts. And we'll have the pleasure to talk with Peter Georgiev, a safety risk lead, medical director at Pfizer, and global safety lead at Regeneron. So good welcome to these gentlemen. And so to open the talk, welcome to Pouya, Dr. Pouya Akbari.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So my name is Pouya Akbari. I am an orthopedic surgeon based in London. My practice is mainly upper limb surgery, trauma, and I also have an interest in AI, artificial intelligence, particularly as it pertains to AI diagnostics. So artificial intelligence has widespread applications across the healthcare industry and can plug the unmet need. Now, I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about AI and diagnostics. So this is an area of which there's been a lot of development recently in various aspects of healthcare, from surgery to medicine, cancer treatment, etc. Now, there are a lot of different topics to cover, but I'm just going to focus on one example. So the Mayo Clinic in the States, they've developed an AI algorithm for routine ECG testing of data. And they recently published a study in Nature. And what they showed is that with this AI ECG, they were able to identify a greater proportion of patients with a lower ejection fraction compared to standard methods of taking history, looking at clinical symptoms, and then performing an echocardiogram, which is a jelly scan of the heart. So what does this even mean? So this allowed them to identify a greater number of patients with various cardiomyopathies and heart failure, leading to earlier diagnosis and treatment strategies in order to improve patient outcomes. So essentially, what are we trying to do? Prevention is better than cure. So if we can identify the disease earlier, there are more treatments available, and this will lead to better outcomes for the patient. So AI also has a role in helping to automate the repetitive, lower value tasks performed by clinicians and managers. So AI automatic reordering of hospital supplies can help to ensure adequate resources are available whilst preventing overstocking. This can help to maintain efficiency and prevent unwanted cancellation of patients. Now, in diagnostics, AI has an important role in providing appropriate differential diagnoses to allow patients to receive the appropriate care sooner and prevent unnecessary treatments, leading to a better standard of care. AI can also help to provide clinicians with appropriate patient histories, any medical problems they may have, procedures they've undergone, medications they're taking, etc. And this can aid the clinicians in making better decisions about patient care because all the information will be readily available at their fingertips. Now, the quality of data affects the integration of AI, and this is one of the challenges that's facing us. Now, in order to have an optimal outcome, ideally, we need to have a strategy in place to ensure the data quality is adequate. Now, despite some healthcare organizations rushing into some AI strategies, they are behind data standards, and this will lead to a lack of data integrity and less accurate AI modeling. Now, there are some concerns about data integrity, and this refers to how the data is captured, assessed, and stored. And the quality of the data may not be accurate to enable precise decision-making. So essentially, rubbish in, rubbish out. So I'm now going to touch on robotics in surgery. And I'd just like to preface this by saying that robotics is robotic-assisted surgery. It's not AI robotics. We don't have AI robots that do what they think is right for the patients. The robots are a slave to the surgeon and do exactly what the surgeon asks them to do. Now, there are many different examples on this, and due to lack of time, I'm just going to focus on one. Now, there are some advantages and challenges facing this. So the first is that robotic-assisted surgery can help to ensure accuracy, repeatability, control, and efficacy when performing operations. It also offers the surgeon advanced visualization by magnifying that particular area so that the surgeon is able to better see what they're doing, know where the problem is, and treat it appropriately. Now, the picture that I put on here is an example of the aptly named Da Vinci robots. So this is something that's used in various surgical specialties such as general surgery and urology. Now, there are some challenges that are facing us. The first is obviously the high maintenance cost of having the robot, and the second is upskilling of the surgeons. That there is a steep learning curve when learning to use these robots, and they require a period of training and supervision before they're allowed to operate independently. So focusing on the Da Vinci, there are some other advantages of using robotic-assisted surgery. Now, each arm of the robot has got more joints in it than we have in our hand. So what does this mean? It has a greater degree of flexibility, dexterity, and it can perform finer movements through a smaller incision. So sometimes when you're operating as a surgeon, you're trying to put a stitch in a deep, dark hole, and it's quite difficult. Whereas the robot can easily go down, do the stitch, and it's a much less stressful process. The other advantage it has is that because of this, you can perform smaller incisions, fewer incisions, which means less scarring, less post-operative pain for the patients, quicker recovery, and they're often discharged sooner as well as a result of this. The other thing to bear in mind is that it has a number of other specific examples for the surgeon. Now, as surgeons, when we operate, particularly during long cases, you can get hand cramp, you can get tired, you can get fatigue. The robot does not fatigue. The other thing to say is that as a surgeon, you can sometimes get repetitive strain injuries, carpal tunnel, tennis elbow, things of that nature. And if you are to perform robotic-assisted surgery, this will help to increase your longevity as a surgeon so you can operate for a greater number of years. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges that are facing us when we're trying to adopt AI into healthcare. So the first, of course, is that the algorithm is only as good as the data that's fed into it. Rubbish in, rubbish out. And this goes for AI planning software as well. So a couple of weeks ago, I was planning a shoulder replacement using some AI software. And I'd looked at the scans myself, and the AI was telling me that I should use one particular type of implant and make my cut here. But I didn't actually agree with what it said. And in the end, I decided to do the operation the way I thought it should be done. And intraoperatively, I saw that the bone and where the wear was exactly where I thought it should be, not where the AI told me. So the patient did well, operation went fine. Now I fed this back to the manufacturer, and I've got a meeting with them next week because I know what the problem is, and I know how to help them fix it. Now, the other issue is that healthcare is extremely regulated with many different stakeholders, which is why AI uptake occurs at a much slower pace. Now, in the UK, we have the AI and Digital Regulation Services, and this supports the government life sciences vision, which seeks to improve clarity on the automation and approval pathways for digital health technologies. Now, the black box problem we've talked about earlier. So a lot of the time, it's unclear how the AI technology makes certain decisions. And this can lead to a lack of trust between the technology and the clinicians, because ultimately, it's the clinician who is accountable if the patient has a complication or a problem, not the AI. And this causes a lack of trust. Data privacy is also a concern, and this is an issue mainly for startups that are trying to develop AI technologies, because it's difficult for them to gain access to healthcare data. Now, changing the mindset is also another problem, particularly for clinicians, because a lot of clinicians, as I mentioned, are distrusting of AI. And this is a challenge that we need to look at, and I'm going to touch on this a bit later. So, in order to make the most out of AI investments, organizations should have a checklist around technological prerequisites, policies, and impact measures. Now, often the people developing the AI tools have limited understanding of the challenges faced by the healthcare sector on a daily basis. And different regions have different healthcare needs depending on the local population. So it's important to engage the local stakeholders in order to determine the needs of the population and customize the application according to the needs of that region. Now, there are a lot of different electronic health record systems in primary and secondary care. And these systems often cannot communicate with each other, making it difficult to share and capture data. And the data flow is not mapped and differs from one trust to another. So there needs to be more harmonized and standardized methods of capturing, processing, and storing this data. Now, AI has been incorporated in other sectors and is currently at a much higher maturity level. Now, as I mentioned, healthcare is very regulated with many different stakeholders, which is why the uptake occurs at a much slower pace. Most AI studies at the moment are performed as a part of academic research because it's these university hospitals that have access to the patient data. Now, this research is often very broad without any focus on the requirements of the end users. And this can lead to the production of suboptimal tools, which are not entirely user-friendly and therefore do not fit into the existing patterns and systems. Now, currently, there is no detailed roadmap for the integration of AI within the healthcare sector, both locally and nationally. So how can we address some of these barriers? So how can we address some of these barriers? Well, the first thing is education. Now, education is very important, and there have been a number of recent studies which have looked at incorporating AI teaching into the medical student curriculum. Now, this will help to bring about a new generation of doctors who are more familiar and more accepting of these AI technologies and are more likely to use them in their day-to-day practice. Now, for the current cohort of clinicians, hospital managers, etc., we need to have courses and conferences such as this one to make people more familiar with the technologies that are available to us, how to use them in their day-to-day practice. And in the NHS specifically, we can have AI or digital champions which can work either regionally or within a trust and can speak to clinicians on a one-to-one basis and help them to understand how the AI can help them and alleviate any concerns or fears that they may have about the technology. Now, there are many different AI prototypes, and a lot of these do not have the end user in mind and are not adaptable, scalable, or commercially viable. And as I mentioned before, there is a gap between research prototyping and implementing these solutions into an operation that will work. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is lack of regional integration of electronic patient records. So, as I said earlier, a lot of the data is siloed, so it's very difficult for you to get data from a primary practice and a hospital and get them to communicate with each other. Now, in the UK, we have integrated care systems. So you have regions of either a city or an area of the country whereby you're all working together with a similar budget to provide the best outcome for your patients. Now, if we were to have a single electronic health record in each of these ICSs, integrated care systems, this would allow clinicians to access patient records from any hospital visit or GP surgery within that region. We can then have regional centralized diagnostic centers, and that information could be disseminated across the integrated care system to primary and secondary care. And this could then provide more accessible data for AI technologies to collect in order to improve the outcomes of the patient population. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Skip these, we'll come back to these later.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I'm Petr Georgiev. I'm the Global Patient Safety Lead. So what that means, because most people do not understand. So it's about, I'm responsible for the drug safety. It's actually safety of the medicine. So just to give it like a more lay term, when you go to take a medicine and you see what can happen, like when you say like a warning, this can happen to you, this adverse effect, you can get headache or you can get like a rash. This is actually part of what I'm responsible, and we work on that, how we can minimize that, but also to warn patient that this can happen. And why I'm here today, because I personally believe that artificial intelligence and Gen AI have a potential, great potential actually, to assist the humans to change how the pharmaceutical industry works at the moment and to make improvement. And I think this is not also like good with the way of productivity and decrease of the cost, but it's also the noble reason, because all of us sometimes who need to go to the doctor and ask the question, is there any treatment? And you wait to say, oh, it's a good treatment, who is very beneficial, but doesn't have side effects. So something like a dream one sometimes, because often doesn't happen. So this is my views, just to say it doesn't necessarily represent the views of Regeneron. And this is shortly what I'm going to touch base. So it's AI in the pharmaceutical industry, impact of the AI on the pharmacovigilance, or this is the drug safety science, and what are the key growth drivers and key challenges. So although I'm not expert in the finance or tech, I touch base something about the finance, because there are investors here in different kind of audience, not just the healthcare. So if you can see here that at the moment in the healthcare, we have like a 20 billion like a market, and the most of that is in the United States probably, and this is like a usual. And if you can see, there's a double-digit growth expected. So this market is expected up to 2030 to rise up to 190 billion. So it's almost 10 times. So it's an amazing growth expected in that area. And a lot of investors also, they can see that the clinical trials, actually that is the part of the pharmaceutical industry, have like a maximum revenue share of 25% in 2020. So this is the number that they want to know. And the question is why need to change and why do we need that is you can see there's a rising costs, and what that means that at the moment there's something going on in the States. They think that the prices are too high and they will try to enforce some cap on the prices, I think, after 2025 with the Medicare. United States have very complicated healthcare system, so I can't go into that deep. But that means that probably the innovative company will come under big pressure because they will need to innovate but there'll be less revenue, so they need to find a way how to overcome that, and that will come when to expedite the drug discovery, to reduce the costs, and also we try to make the more personal treatment for the people. And this is really important because at the moment to say 5 to 7 years, 7 to 10 years it takes to develop a drug, but that with the A probably it will go maybe it's expected 5 to 7 years, and that will be great. And the other part is not just the decreased cost, it's about the treatment getting to the patient in need. So it's an unmet medical need that is important. And to be able to do that, also they need to be able to collaborate between them and to increase the collaboration between all stakeholders that we have, like pharma industry, regulators, between different pharma companies, that will be very tough. And you can see here the numbers again. Who is interested to see what kind of potential impact will have, like a 16 to 110 billion, maybe like a saving in 10, 15 years. That is a huge, you have like a significant reduction in overall time, like for developing the medicine. It can help with the submissions and medical writing. At the moment, there's a lot of writing, and that can be cut if we have the AI that will make, like, reduce the cost, because reduce the times to do something, because actually instead of doing some document you need 10 days, you'll need 2 days. And that's really important. And productivity, this is one of the topics that we talk about. It's expected to be significant, 30 to 45%. And this is again a little bit about how it can affect different types of the chain that we have in the pharma industry, that is actually the most regulated industry in the world at the moment. So you have how to improve with the targets, how it can improve with the safety and the pricing strategy. So it can impact every part of that. And as I said, the drug safety is how to detect this, predict this, like side effects, and to be able to minimize the risk for the patient. And this is not only what we want to do, but it's also, as I said, regulation, and we are regulated by the law to do everything we can do to protect the patient. And this is one of the topics I would like to talk more. It's about how we can use this in the future. So in the future, I expect this, at the moment we have like one information for all, but by using the AI and the specific for each individual, that will be able to analyze the data, we will get to that point that for different type of population will have different medication with better benefit, but with reduced adverse events. And that cut a lot of things, cut the cost, and also increase the patient, patients like life, and it's really important. It will be able to predict if someone will experience some adverse, some unwanted effect, and actually will be able to minimize it or not give that treatment at all. And this is again another thing we can do is like we can monitor these unwanted effects in the real time. If you can imagine, we can attach to some machine something, checking our blood pressure to see something's happening, notify the doctor, and then maybe we can take like appropriate measure on time and save the patient life, or like decrease the impact on the health. And there's a lot of key growth drivers. This is why we need the AI, because we have a lot of data. This needs to be analyzed. We have demand to reduce the healthcare cost. But there are a lot of challenges also that maybe we'll touch base later, most on the questions. And one of this is, I want to say, high initial setup cost. So a lot of pharma company probably will think how to do that because it's a lot of money they need to invest. So probably someone will need to come with this disruptive idea and to have a disruptor on the market that will help this to be implemented in the real world. And there are a lot of impacts also from the ethical part, especially for the privacy law, how we can use that data from the whole world and how the patient data without affecting the privacy and actually affecting the law, because there are a lot of law at the moment, like a GDPR in Europe, that affects how we can use AI. So probably this is a lot of things that are unknown, but when this starts working, it will be like a huge impact. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much, Poya, Dr. Poya. Now it's time for question and answers. We have a little bit more time than expected, so that's great. So I'm going to be starting and leave you some spare time to think about, and I'm sure you have already lots of questions in your mind. One question for both of you. So we've heard about surgery, about how robots can help, and AI coupled with that. And what about your experience in diagnosis assisted through AI and with the patients, and what do you expect through it? And on the other side of the clinical development, what about AI used for the patient journey afterwards, mostly around precision medicine, personalized medicine, in terms of how to keep the patient safe after, for instance, a surgery or a treatment?
With regards to AI and diagnostics, I think this is a rapidly growing area, which is extremely, is something we need to embrace, I think, before it's forced upon us. And in terms of my personal experience, so I've used AI for surgical planning, and I'm also aware of other AI companies which are out there which provide useful diagnostics, particularly in radiology, so sort of looking at x-rays and things like that. And I did have a couple of slides which I couldn't put in, but I kept them at the end, just it's easier to illustrate this. So yeah, so basically this is an example of AI surgical planning. So this is a shoulder replacement that I'm planning to do in maybe 2 or 3 weeks' time. So you send the CT, it comes back, and the AI tells you, right, this is where I think the center is, this is where I think this line should go, and it tells you what the angles are. And then based on that, you can adjust it, put the implants where you think it is, and then the end result is something like this. So what I'm planning to do with a shoulder replacement like this, so this is where my base plate is going to go, the stem's down there, this is where the head is going to sit, this is where the screws are, and this will tell me sort of roughly the size of the implants that I have and what kind of movement I should expect after the operation. So I do find this very helpful. Now, as I mentioned, it is flawed, as I found in one of the previous cases that I did. So I don't take this as gospel. I use my own judgments, and I change the plan accordingly. And the other example I wanted to use was how AI has been useful in diagnostics in terms of being able to diagnose simple things such as x-rays. So if we look here, so basically the AI is telling us that there's a fracture here, and you'll just have to take my word for it. There is a fracture here in the socket of the shoulder bone, and there's some arthritis here at the end of the collarbone, which is what it's told us. And this one's probably a bit easier to understand. So this is a pelvis, and you can see here there's a break there and there in the pelvic bone and one there, and that's what the AI has picked up. So I think these emerging technologies can be useful, not just in the UK, but globally, or especially in places where they don't have easy access to radiologists to report scans. The A&E doctor can go on what the AI tells it. So that's a couple of examples of how AI is useful. And in terms of other emerging technology, so I'm aware that in Cambridge, they've developed some AI software that's used by the oncologists. And what they've done is the AI maps the area of healthy tissue around where the cancer is, so that when you're doing radiotherapy, the radiotherapy doesn't attack the healthy tissue. Now that process will take an oncologist somewhere between 70 to 90 minutes, and the AI can do it in 3 to 5 minutes. So it saves a lot of time for the clinician that can then spend that time either seeing other patients or planning the treatment for that particular patient.
Very, very interesting. Better?
Yeah, so in our area, it will be a little bit different. So it will be the most challenging part, how we can trust what AI is doing. Because to be able to do that, it will need to be developed different models and this model to be tested. And that will be the biggest obstacle how to do it. If we manage to verify that the model's working and everything, that will be perfect. But in that way, still there will be some skeptical part. Because, is there not going to be, is the AI can make mistake? And what if make mistake? Who will be responsible for that mistake? You can't say, oh, AI made mistakes. So probably, again, the company will actually bear the responsibility for that at the end. And what probably it can happen, for me, I'm more the fan what was said by Rishi Sunak to Elon Musk, that AI is here to assist us, instead what Elon Musk says that AI will replace. I really personally don't believe in that. So it's my view, because it will be a lot of challenging how to train the AI for that part. But if it goes right, if we manage to get the models, it will be a really breakthrough, and it will save a lot of probably lives, because I read somewhere in the States, accordingly in the hospital, the fifth reason for death is unwanted side effects. So you can imagine, so it's a fifth a reason for that. So it's a big thing that we need to work on.
So just building on something that you said there, so I think it's very important, as I mentioned, that accountability. So who is accountable if the AI makes a mistake and harm comes to your patient? The AI is not going to go to court. Ultimately, you're the clinician. You are responsible for the care, of your patient. Any problems that the patient has comes back to you, and that's an area that needs to be, I think, looked at and explored. Accountability.
Yeah, at the moment it's the same with our industry, because if you think, even if sometimes we delegate tasks to other company, we give it to CROs and everything, they always say the ultimate responsibility lays with the company, with the sponsor. So I think that will be same, because you see, the easiest way for the government to do and reduce their cost and reduce their accountability, it will just put it on the pharma. And therefore pharma will still have a lot of reluctance to do these things, because they'll need to pay for that.
Yeah, to sum it up and trying to see if there is a line that we can draw between the flaws of AIs, between the omissions, the hallucinations, the randomness, we call that temperatures in models, and the obvious efficiency of these AI to do some diagnosis and to be more efficient at some point, and to be able to prove that these AI are as efficient or even better than humans for them to be integrated, is this line that we are currently riding, I feel, in the AI adoption. Okay, is there any question in the assistant? Yeah? The microphone is going to be coming.
Hi there. I work with a lot of pharma companies, particularly in the US, and I'm really interested in this idea of using AI to be very personalized in how we actually treat the patient. But I can see so many stakeholders involved, from the patient themselves to the carers for the patient to the healthcare provider to numerous points in pharma companies, and so many layers of resistance. And then, of course, in the States, you've got insurance. How can that be addressed to actually properly move the industry? Even if we develop that technology, how can we actually move the industry in that way when there are so many layers of resistance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And as I said, it's a very interesting healthcare system also there in the States. So the thing is, first, probably we'll need to come to that, to have that technology in my opinion. So like to be able to personalize the medicine, we need to have like a biomarkers to go too deep to decide like which biomarkers we use, like how we're going to split between the population. And then when we have that, then I think it must be a government initiative, to force the companies to do it between themselves and everything. Because now even two departments in the same company, they can't really agree on something. And can you imagine like all these big company and like big stakeholders to do it? It's almost like impossible. So I think government and with the regulation will need to enforce that. Otherwise, it will be always reluctance.
We have some spare time for two quick questions or one very important.
So one of the trends that we've seen very recently because of COVID-19 has been the adoption of low-cost disposable medical devices, the one-off tests. And that's opened up a whole new industry, not just to test for COVID-19, but the flu, STDs, and so forth at households. And trends like health and wellness has also reduced the sort of regulatory adoption of those as well. Do you think that that whole new ecosystem that's brewing is going to reduce the sort of bottlenecks of the adoption of AI in later stages of the value chain as well, or the industries in pharma?
I haven't thought about it, to be honest, but yeah, it's a new industry, but again, it's about sometimes, like I said, it's always like how much is sometimes, still people don't trust in that. A lot of people don't believe in that is correct or incorrect. So, during the COVID-19, there were so many like differences about what is correct, what is incorrect. So maybe I think it will change, but probably I think with the AI, maybe this will improve in the future and will improve the way how we do these tests. That can be like, to say, done maybe at home, but actually the results will come somewhere else, and that will be like a more verified and everything. I think with the AI, this will be one of the things, but probably again in the future, and depends again about how much company we're willing to do that.
Right, one remaining minute for one quick question.
Thank you. Good morning. A question to our surgeon, Dr. Puya. Now, in a clinical setting, there's a lot of corporate responsibility, corporate liability. What we have I'm a dentist. We have this something called vicarious liability. That means if anybody's in the clinic at the time, a nurse, could be a receptionist, could be an associate, everyone's responsible if something goes wrong. Now, the question is that in robotics or AI, you've got another layer of somebody who's written the software, and if something goes pear-shaped and then you're before the GMC, what happens then? What happens if you turn around and say, how does vicarious liability kick in terms of the person who's written the software, written the AI, and if something does go wrong? That really worries me.
So as I mentioned, that's something that definitely needs to be looked at. I mean, I don't know how medicine differs to dentistry, but ultimately, anything happens to your patient, it's your problem as the consultant whose care it's under. And I'll give you an example. So when I was on fellowship in Oswestry in the north, one of my consultants got a complaint because his patient fell over in the parking lot. I mean, I don't see how that's the clinician's responsibility or fault because he tripped on his way to the car, but the complaint comes to you because you're the responsible clinician for that patient, and it's your problem. You need to write a letter, you need to address it, you need to try and sort it out. So if we're thinking about AI or robotics and how the liability or accountability will lie, I think that's something that definitely needs to be looked at, because if the AI makes a mistake, yes, I accept that as a surgeon you need to take some accountability because you can overrule the decision, but I think we need to move into a phase where there's sort of shared responsibility.
Thank you, Dr. Akbari. Thank you, Peter. It was a great opportunity to talk about AI. If we meet outside, I think everybody agrees on continuing this discussion. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So thank you very much, and we'll see you outside. Thank you.
Thank you.